Last week, a friend called me, shaken and worried. She had just heard from another friend whose dad had been diagnosed with aggressive brain cancer. He's on Medicare, but rehab costs are about to cross $10,000 a month, and their $3 million retirement portfolio is suddenly on the line. They were desperate, asking, what can we do to protect our life savings and still get Dad the care he needs? Sadly, this is exactly when most people start thinking about these issues, when it's almost too late and their planning options become painfully limited. But it doesn't have to be that way. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact framework I used to answer that question, and how using irrevocable trust can shield your wealth from being wiped out by medical costs. And before we dive in, just a quick note. I'm a fiduciary financial advisor, not an attorney. Always work with a qualified elder law attorney before implementing any strategies. Let me ask you something. Would you spend 40 years building a 3 to 5 million nest egg only to watch a third of it disappear in just 5 years? That's not just a possibility. It's a growing reality for families across America. The average nursing home stay in the United States now costs over $100,000 per year. In-home skilled nursing care can cost nearly as much. And contrary to popular belief, Medicare does not cover long-term care beyond limited short-term rehab. Take this example. A scenario I've seen play out too many times. A married couple, Kevin and Linda, saved diligently their entire lives, building a $3.4 million portfolio they hoped would fund their grandchildren's education and leave a legacy to their church. Then Kevin's Parkinson's progressed faster than expected. 3 years later, they had spent over $400,000 on care, money that was supposed to change their grandchildren's lives. Without proper planning, you are essentially forced to spend down nearly everything you own before government programs like Medicaid will help with long-term care. And by the time you qualify, your spouse might be left with barely enough to live on, and your children and grandchildren receive nothing. Fortunately, there is a way to protect what you've built while still ensuring access to quality care. And that brings us to one of the most powerful tools in the protection strategy: irrevocable trusts. Oh, by the way, if you're worried about losing your life savings to healthcare costs, let's fix that. Click the link in the description to schedule your free healthcare protection strategy session. We'll show you how to protect your assets, avoid spend down, and secure your legacy for your loved ones. So, what exactly is an irrevocable trust? An irrevocable trust is a legal tool that can wall off your assets from Medicaid spend down rules while still letting those dollars grow for your heirs. Now I know what you're thinking. Irrevocable? You mean I have to give up control of my money? Well, yes and no. Here's how it works. You transfer assets into a trust with specific terms that cannot be easily changed. Because you no longer technically own these assets, they are not counted when determining eligibility for programs like Medicaid. But, and this is crucial, a properly structured trust can still allow you to receive income from the assets, live in and use property placed in the trust, maintain significant influence over how assets are managed, and direct who receives these assets after you're gone. But here's the thing. Irrevocable trusts work best when planned well in advance, ideally 3 to 5 years before you need care. This is why we tell our clients the best time to plan is when you are healthy, not when you are facing a crisis. I understand that this can all feel a bit abstract. So instead of drowning you in legal jargon and trust acronyms, let me show you how these trusts work in the real world, through examples of situations that many families face. Imagine Dan and Lisa, both 72. They have about $1 million in investments and a paid-off home. Dan served in Vietnam, and they are worried about potential long-term care needs. For them, a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, MAPT for short, could be ideal. They transfer their non-retirement investments and perhaps their home into the trust. This starts the 5-year Medicaid clock ticking. After that period, those assets are protected if either needs nursing home care. For veterans like Dan, there is also the Veterans Asset Protection Trust, with just a 3-year look-back period for VA aid and attendance pension. Many clients actually layer these approaches, starting with the VAPT to hit that 3-year mark quickly, then continuing to satisfy Medicaid's 5-year window. The payoff? Move assets early, keep the investment growth working for you, and still qualify for benefits when you need care. Sometimes protecting your assets from Medicaid spend down isn't enough. you also need to maintain a steady income. That's where an irrevocable income-only trust can be a game changer, especially in states where Medicaid closely scrutinizes trust provisions. Meet John and Martha. They are both 70 with a $2.2 million portfolio generating $75,000 in annual income. They want Medicaid protection, but need that income to maintain their lifestyle. So they set up an irrevocable income-only trust. Here's how it works. They transfer their non-retirement investments into the trust. They retain the right to receive all income generated by those assets, interest, dividends, or rental income. But they give up the right to access the principal, the main assets themselves. After the 5-year Medicaid look-back period, the principal is fully protected from Medicaid spend-down. Why is this smart? Because in some states, Medicaid offices are suspicious of trusts that allow trustees discretion over principal distributions. An income-only trust avoids that problem entirely by making the principal untouchable. But before setting up this trust, it's critical to ask one question. Can you comfortably live on Social Security plus the income from the trust? If yes, then the irrevocable income-only trust works perfectly. If no, I recommend a backup strategy, like pairing the irrevocable income-only trust with a deferred annuity for guaranteed income or a small life long-term care hybrid policy to bridge any income gaps. The payoff? You protect your principal from Medicaid after 5 years while maintaining your income stream for life. But protecting assets isn't just about avoiding spend-down. It's also about making sure you have enough liquid funds for care without draining everything else. Now consider Elaine and Robert. They are healthy at 65, but have family history of dementia. They want protection, but are worried about having enough liquid assets for potential care. For them, an irrevocable life insurance trust with a long-term care rider could be the answer. Here's how it works. They buy a $500,000 second-to-die life insurance policy with a long-term care rider. The trust owns the policy, so if the long-term care rider is triggered, it doesn't drain their personal savings. If one or both of them need long-term care, they can access a portion of the death benefit tax-free to cover those costs. If they never need care, the full $500,000 death benefit passes income tax-free to their heirs when the second spouse passes. The beauty here, premium gifts to the trust fall under the annual exclusion, and the $500,000 death benefit provides a leveraged payout that can significantly exceed what you paid in premiums, far beyond what most conservative bonds would offer. The payoff? You leverage premium gifts while ensuring funds for care, and the death benefit replaces wealth for your heirs. For families with a disabled child or grandchild, a third-party special needs trust is essential. Imagine Susan and James, who have a son with a developmental disability. They want to ensure he's cared for after they are gone without losing his government benefits. A special needs trust protects the inheritance from disqualifying their son from SSI or Medicaid, while providing funds for enhanced care and a better quality of life. This approach can also protect the parents themselves. If they are worried they may eventually need Medicaid, they can segregate some assets for the disabled child now, satisfying both elder care and legacy goals in one move. For families with moderate wealth, another option is to fund a special needs trust using a second-to-die life insurance policy held inside an irrevocable life insurance trust. This creates leverage without reducing your liquid net worth. The payoff? Keep your loved one on SSI Medicaid while enhancing their quality of life. Lastly, let's talk about a strategy that can act as healthcare hedge for married couples. The Spousal Lifetime Access Trust, or SLAT. Picture Michael and Catherine, both 67. They have a strong marriage and a $2.5 million estate. They want protection, but are worried about access to funds if a health crisis hits. Here's how a SLAT works. Michael gifts marketable securities to an irrevocable trust. Catherine, as lifetime beneficiary, can receive distributions if needed. Because the assets are outside Michael's name, they are shielded from his future nursing home spend-down. But you need to know that divorce or death of the beneficiary spouse freezes access. So SLATs belong in rock-solid marriages and should never be your only line of defense. The payoff? Your spouse can tap income if crisis hits, while keeping assets off-limit to nursing home spend-down. Now, you might be thinking, can't I just download trust documents online and handle this myself? Technically, yes. But here's the challenge. Irrevocable trusts aren't just legal documents. They are complex financial tools that must align with your state's laws and your personal goals. A single wrong phrase can invalidate your entire protection strategy. If you are working with an elder law attorney, make sure they coordinate with your financial advisor too. Why? Because your financial advisor already knows your full financial picture, your assets, income, retirement goals, and family priorities. And that perspective can be the difference between a trust that truly works and the one that falls apart. Here's why this coordination matters. Keeping cash flow steady. It's not just about protecting assets. Your advisor can make sure your trust doesn't leave you cash-strapped in retirement, balancing protection with access. Smart tax planning. Timing is everything. Your advisor can help you decide if converting certain accounts to a Roth before funding an irrevocable trust could save you thousands in taxes, avoiding costly surprises later. Maintaining flexibility. Even with irrevocable trusts, you can keep some level of control through carefully structured terms, distribution rules, and powers of appointment. Staying legally compliant. A trust has to follow your state's laws, and Medicaid rules can change. Your advisor works with your attorney to make sure your trust stays solid and effective. The bottom line, irrevocable trusts are powerful tools, but only when they are carefully designed, funded, and managed over time. And that's where having the right team makes all the difference. Before we wrap up, let's make sure your strategy is bulletproof, because even the best plan fails if you trip over common pitfalls. Mistake number 1, funding the trust after a diagnosis. Once a health crisis hits, the 5-year clock hasn't expired, triggering penalty periods, so plan early. Mistake number 2, retaining too much control. If you keep too much direct control, Medicaid may decide you still effectively own the assets. Mistake number 3, leaving an escape hatch too wide. They sound great until they kill Medicaid eligibility. Make sure your escape options don't undermine your protection. Mistake number 4, not coordinating with legal counsel. An irrevocable trust is a serious legal tool, not a DIY project. One wrong phrase can invalidate your protection strategy. If you ignore this planning, you're not just missing an opportunity, you're risking everything you've built. We've all heard the stories. A sudden health crisis forces a family to sell investments in panic. Decades of savings gone in an instant. A spouse is left struggling on the bare minimum Medicaid allows, barely enough to maintain their quality of life. Adult children, juggling their own careers and families, are suddenly burdened with managing care and finances, leading to conflict and resentment. And that legacy you dreamed of, helping grandchildren with college, supporting your church, or leaving a lasting impact, it simply vanishes. But you don't have to let this happen. Self-funding long-term care is a choice, but it's not your only choice. Plan 5 years early, and the nursing home gets what it needs, not the legacy you've spent decades building. And one more thing I wanted to say. Protecting your assets from healthcare costs is just one piece of the legacy protection puzzle. In this video, I'm sharing 7 lifestyle risks that threaten your wealth and legacy. These are the silent wealth killers most people never see coming until it's too late. Make sure to check it out. See you in the next video.